Women leading the way.
Hey everyone, welcome to Women Leading the Way by Droha Combs, a podcast about women shaping the future of finance, fintech, blockchain, and technology. Here we don't talk about titles or success stories, we talk about the real moments that shape a career and how leadership changes when women are in the room. I'm Maria, and in each episode we explore one big idea through one personal journey. Today we are talking about community as a new kind of power and why it matters now more than ever. Our guest is someone whose journey into Web3 didn't start with the code of finance, but with intuition, courage, and community. Danielle Marie is the founder of All Things Blockchain. She's blockchain savvy and a wolfer. Initiatives that have helped thousands of women step into Web3 and the digital economy. But what I like the most is that behind all of that is a very human story.
Women leading the way.
So Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to share my story and see how we can help other women, want to dive in and learn more about this ecosystem.
Thank you so much for being with us, Danielle. Honestly, I feel like I should go back a little bit for our listeners and share the story of how we met. It was last year. I talked in 2029 in Singapore, but even before Singapore, I was working really hard in your DMs, trying to arrange some collaborations between our projects. And we really did it happen. We joined the She Connects networking meetup hosted by you, Danielle, and we brought our Women Leading the Way print edition there where you, Danielle, was featured as well. So I already know that you've been doing so many cool things, and it's really nice that we finally get the chance to record the full conversation here. But let's start simple. Where are you right now? Tell us more about what are you focused on and what are you building this year?
Oh, wow. That's a lot to unpack. I feel like there was just like 20 questions in one. The exciting part is building globally and seeing the different style communities, the different level of involvement, adoption, where there's still the kind of lots of different opportunity. I'm based here in Australia and I've been here for 14 years. I'm originally from Canada. I love living here in Australia, and my whole Web3 crypto blockchain journey started here. But I feel that when we live in Western countries, we don't feel the pains that other countries feel when it comes to banking or in like different types of kind of like infrastructure. So because we don't notice it as much, like I don't think that they really appreciate the true value and purpose and behind having true ownership and inflation. And so when you live in countries that you have higher exposure to experiencing that, then you can appreciate why Bitcoin, why blockchain, why crypto. And so I found it quite interesting that people are quite hungry to learn about this technology in other regions compared to, say, somewhere like Australia, where they're still interested to learn, but it's kind of just more out of curiosity or learning how they can trade crypto. It's not to solve their banking problems.
That's such a good point, actually. That in places where people don't feel like the pain, crypto can look like a trading, not a real solution. So my question is, how do you shift that? How do you help people see that Web3 can be something bigger? And how does a community play a role in it?
Yeah, well, it is when, before I answer that question, it's 100% a community. And when I was in Vietnam with a friend of mine. It was after Token 49, and I went to Vietnam, and she's not in crypto, and we went for my birthday. We weren't there for crypto. But anyways, I whipped up this dinner, and it turned into like 15 people that I didn't know, but they were all in the crypto space. But I just messaged a few people that I did know. I knew like 2 or 3 people. And then both those people messaged some people. And then we just ended up with this like table of like 15 crypto people, all in Ho Chi Minh. And my friend said to me, and she goes, how did you like curate? Because I host and run events. So like everyone knows me. But she goes, but we're in a country where you don't know anyone. And like, you just like made this dinner with like 15 different people, and like it felt like everyone knew each other. And I was like, well, that's just kind of like the crypto community, you're just going to go, you reach out with them. So I definitely think that crypto in itself is just one big, huge, giant community. And I love being a part of it. But then obviously there's so many different layers to it. I like to focus on how do we support people when they're entering. So and there's a lot of things that people need to understand in the beginning, and you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you need to know first. So we really, really just focus on what are the critical foundations. Like blockchain foundations aren't going to change. Not your keys, not your crypto. That's not going to change. Like what is a layer 1 versus a layer 2? What is like consensus? These core foundations. So the technology will keep evolving, and new things will pop up like deepen and stuff like that. But the core infrastructure and the core technology and the core why and all that won't change. So I think that the most important thing for people to learn is the basics. And I always use the analogy of when you're learning how to speak, first you learn the alphabet, and then you learn to put letters together, and then you put sentences together, and then you put a paragraph, and then you can, then you can write a chapter, and then you could write a book. Well, it's the same thing when you're kind of learning about like this new kind of like emerging technology. It takes time, and you've got to invest time. But people need to learn. So that's what we specialize in, and we focus on. And then there's the other side of the community. So that's like the bringing in the new people, supporting them, onboarding the Web2 people, holding their hands, helping them get started. But then there's the other side, which is more of the immersive Web3 community that are active. They go to conferences. They're looking to connect with maybe particularly women that are working in the Web3 space, how they can connect with other women that are working in the Web3 space, because most of the time we're all working on male-dominated teams. So it's nice just to even have friends, even if they're not in our team, they're still in the ecosystem. Do you know what I mean? There's still like a support system. So then you have that side of the community that we support as well, with like our mentorship program and our mentorship group that we're launching. And it's like, how do we support some of these women that have maybe recently entered or looking to enter from a career path? And how do we support them? So those are kind of the main things. So we're very much more about the beginning stages. So we don't teach, DeFi and all that sort of stuff, although we do partner with other education providers that provide that type of education.
Women Leading the Way podcast.
Okay, I love that story because it shows actually what you really mean when you say that crypto is one big community. And I also love how you think like in layers. You bring new people in, then you teach the foundations, and you support women who are already in the space. And then when it comes for the advanced stuff like DeFi, you just partner with other educators. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So if you look at the practical side, what do you actually do to build that community? What's your main format, and how do you bring people together?
I guess good question. What we do is we just host events. So I think events are the backbone of building any community. And they're so important for so many different reasons. But one of them, yeah, obviously bringing a community and bringing people together. All of our events have a pretty like kind of standard template of networking, educational component, networking, right? And so it's like giving the community that space, and we do them through events, and generally people will find us. I don't. We're All Things Blockchain is a nonprofit. We run Meetup. We put it on Meetup. We promote it. We've never been like out there like actively like trying to how are we going to promote and market this and get people. It's like no, we're going to host the events. We'll promote it on Meetup. We'll promote it, but it's just going to kind of grow organically, right? And then when somebody comes to one of our meetups and they have a good time and they learn something and they meet some cool people, well, then what do? They go home. They hopefully tell some of their friends. They try to get some of their friends to come with them. And then you just kind of grow like organically that way. But I would say that's generally it. And then with Evolve Her, because that's obviously all things blockchain, and then Evolve Her, which I launched last year. It will be like 1 year in March when I launched Evolve Her. That is specifically focused on females rather than all things blockchain is, everything in it kind of all inclusive, and hosting events at all of the major crypto conventions. So we'll be at Consensus Hong Kong in, like 2 weeks time. Not even like almost like 10 days time. I think it is maybe 2 weeks. And Token 49, in Dubai and in Singapore. So I think events are the backbone of building community to then support them in whatever way it may be. And is that in education? Is that they just want to connect with other women? They're looking for partnerships. Obviously they'd rather partner with another woman that's working in another company. That type of stuff.
Well, I do love how simple a human that is. Events just create the space and people have a good experience and then it grows organically through word of mouth. And exactly with Her, you are doing that in a very intentional way for women, especially at the big conferences. And we really had a great experience together in Singapore. So I'm curious right now, what do you feel compared to a few years ago? Has interest in Web3 actually grown? Is it easier now to bring new people in than it was just when you started?
Of course, I think it's grown, and compared to say 5 years ago when She's Blockchain Savvy was kind of like my first little side, if you want to call it like a passion business or a little side hobby business, let's say, right? And it was like, how am I going to support more women? Back then, I think it was, a lot harder. It was like I was really having to sell or promote and try to convince people why they should learn. And I didn't want that. I'm not here to convince you that you should invest in any type of digital asset. I'm here to teach you what you need to know. And that's if you are going to invest in a digital asset, then you need to know what private keys are, and you need to know how to store them properly. And you need to know the difference between a hardware wallet and a coldware wallet. And I'm not here to try to convince you. So now I think, so I had a harder time in that. It was like I had to try to convince people why they should invest time in the education. Compared to now, I think because it is more institutionalized, let's say it's more mainstream, it's been, it's been around for a while now, so it's kind of like a bit more trusted. So now people are more like, actually looking for it, compared to before it was like you had to try to convince them that they should learn about it, rather than now I just host the events, and then the people just like, they come, they find, they're looking, what I mean? They're looking for solutions. And then, but yeah, so I would definitely say that obviously we have a very, the government that's in charge and everything in America is so crypto friendly and pro crypto. And so with all the institutions and all the ETFs and all this regulation coming in and stable coins, and you've got stable coin regulation, in Europe, you've got it coming in America. So I think all of these things just create, what's the word I'm looking for? It validates the use case, and it validates that it's not a crypto scam, right? So Bitcoin, Ethereum, blockchain, they're not scams, but there's just so many crypto scams and so many pump and dumps and so many meme coins and so many altcoins that everyone just thinks that everything is a scam. But that's what we need to teach people. We need to teach people, no, it's not, right? It's kind of just like, so yeah, I'd say in a whole, definitely more and more people are becoming more and more interested.
Yeah, I really like how you separate the two things. Like, you are not here to convince anyone to invest. You're here to make sure people understand the basics, can protect themselves. And you're absolutely right, because as the space becomes more mainstream, people trust it more. Absolutely. But the noise and the scams make education even more important. So with that in mind, what are you focused on right now? What are you building next to meet this growing demand for the education?
So at the moment we're focused on a few different things. So the education hub that we want to build, which is kind of like let's say an education aggregator, and we want it to be full of free education for everyone. And we're working with our education sponsors, and we're launching webinar Wednesdays. And what that will be is every single week we'll have a live webinar that is going to be about an educational content. And the four, for example, different sponsors that I have for this first round of the Education Hub sponsors, they're all different. One's a layer one, one's an exchange, one is like Stand with Crypto, which is about like policy and regulation and movement and community building. And so the content, and one's actually an RWA project. So the content for all of them, teaching about RWAs, teaching about different things in exchanges, thinking about layer ones, it is so different. And so we'll have different webinars every single week. And then that content then gets put into the Education Hub and becomes this kind of like free community education hub, right? And everything is open and kind of gated. But then what we do is we collaborate with other different education providers, because I can't be one thing for everyone. So if you come to me and you say, hey, I want to learn more of the technical side of things, or how do I build a career as a developer, even though maybe you wouldn't really be thinking about that at the moment because of AI, but let's just say that for an example, right? So looking at kind of how would I kind of transition? Where do I get started? I would be encouraging people, rather than more of looking how to upskill yourself into Web3 in terms of working in Web3, I would be thinking, how do I upskill myself to understand how I use all of the different products that are becoming available in like DeFi staking, lending, this sort of things, because financial literacy, the traditional financial ecosystem, how do those people become wealthier? Well, it's because somebody taught them from a young age, okay, save some money, put it in an account, then you're going to get some interest on that. Then when you get that interest, then you take that and then you reinvest that, right? And then they taught them about like compound interest and all that sort of stuff. And like there are ways that you can earn tokens by participating in different networks. And then you could take those tokens, right? You could convert them to stable coins, and then you could go and like stake them, at a really low risk, but still be like earning a yield on that. And so I think that people need to start thinking about the ways that we can make money in these digital economies over upskilling themselves, because AI is going to take half of the jobs that people are looking at. Like I would hate to be 18 right now with parents that want me to go to university.
Women leading the way.
Yeah, that really hits. And I love that you're connecting Web3 education to something bigger, like basic financial literacy and the reality that AI is changing the whole job market. So I want to go back for a second, because your perspective didn't come out of nowhere, Before Web3, what were you doing? Tell us more. What was the moment that pulled you into Bitcoin and the whole that space, that stuff?
So before I even got into Web3, I had an online kind of health network marketing business. It was my first online business. So I learned a lot from that. And actually the person that I was working with on that business is the person that introduced me to Bitcoin. But before that, I was in hospitality for like 20 years. And and did everything from high end to low end, bars and restaurants, owned them, corporate, fine dining. So lots of experience in the hospitality sector. And then I was just looking and trying to, I knew, I was a high school dropout that was like, been working in hospitality for many years. I went back, got my graduate, then came to Australia, and, trying to transition from being from hospitality and not having like a academic background, which is funny because now it would be a very much different situation. But back then, not having a university or a college degree and like only coming from hospitality, like made it harder to transition. So I was just looking, okay, what do I want to do next? And I didn't want to waste all this money on like going to school for something that I wouldn't end up using. I hear about all these stories where people like spend all this money on being a lawyer or whatever, and then they graduate and they can't even get a job, So I was afraid of doing that. And so I was looking, and then I found Bitcoin. And then I went down this rabbit hole of understanding what Bitcoin was. I quickly learned about a bull market, and because I got in right at the end of 2017, and obviously my $5,000, I think, turned into like $25,000, and I thought I was going to be a crypto millionaire. And then the next thing my $25,000 is like worth $2,000. And I'm like, what just happened there? Right. Like, had no idea what a bull run or bull market or bull run or any of that. Like I was just caught in. And so then I went down a rabbit hole for about a year and a half, going to meetups here and in Brisbane, which has always had a very active community here in Australia, and particularly in Brisbane. And all those meetups would always be me and 40 dudes pretty much. And then fast forward a little bit, I decided, okay, I want to build a career in this, but I don't know how or what. And I was also on a student visa. I'm from Canada, and I was on a student visa, and I was studying a diploma of business. to stay in the country pretty much. And I met these guys and they curated the diploma and the advanced diploma of applied blockchain. It was the first accredited courses here in Australia that it was delivered what they call registered training organizations. So it's like college, right? So it wasn't a university course, but it was like this kind of college course. And they said to me, I'm like, oh, I'd love to study that. But I can only study courses because I was like, oh, I want to get a job. I don't know how, what I want to do. I'd love to study that because it's about blockchain for business. But I'm like, I can only study courses that are on the international list. Because if you want to study here in Australia, and I'm sure it's like in any country, it has to be certain courses. And they go, oh, well, actually, it's going to be added to the list in March. And this was November 2020. No, November 9th. No, it was the year of COVID. So 2019, going into 2020. And they said you could be the first, student to enroll. So I was the first international student to enroll in these courses to complete the diploma and the advanced diploma of applied blockchain. And then while I was studying those, I got my qualification to teach it. So by the time I finished the diploma and the advanced diploma, I also had my qualification to teach. And then I just taught it. So that was my transition was, they were like, we'll do the course. And then when I was doing the course, they're like, well, and I've always been good at, even in hospitality, I was always the trainer. I was always the assessor. I was always in leadership. I was always in management. So I was a Zumba instructor. I was a personal trainer. So coaching and training has always been, kind of like second nature to me. So it doesn't matter what you're teaching, as long as you know it or you're passionate or interested in about it. So then I went down that rabbit hole, and then I did that for very many years, and I got my bachelor's, and I taught the diploma of applied blockchain for about 3 years at one of the largest kind of government training organizations here in Australia. And then last year I quit my job and went all in on building Evolver and all things blockchain because I wanted to educate the way that I think that we need to be educating. I believe in education wholeheartedly. I just don't believe in the traditional education system. And I think the traditional education system is going to go extinct very quickly with AI. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, totally. Things are changing so fast, and education has to change with that. Even in PR, AI changed so many things with our work with journalists. And so, yeah, but really it's a different story for another whole podcast. So just getting back to the educational side, when you were teaching that accredited diploma in Australia, what did you notice about the people who showed up? Was it different from meetups, especially for women?
So the accredited course is a little bit different because it was a government-funded program where the diploma was on so they have programs here where it was on the study free list. So they take skills that are missing or lacking within the country that need to be filled. And then they make those courses free and available for students. So the ratio to women was actually a little bit higher. And one of the things that impressed me higher than the meetups. In terms of women that are just going to a meetup on a Tuesday night that's to learn about crypto or blockchain. I hosted a meetup tonight and I delivered a workshop and I taught people what are private keys and how to create a Web3 wallet, right? So that going to those types of meetups is always more males, right? It's much, much better now. For me, obviously, I've built a community around me, so I have a higher ratio, but I still think in most communities or in the average community, it's probably still a 20% to 80. It's probably 80% men, 20% women. I think, obviously, because of the core of what I'm building, I'd say we probably sit around the 30, maybe 30, 40%. mark. So I don't notice as much. But with the accredited courses, I was surprised how many stay-at-home moms were taking the course well because it was for free and they were stuck at home with the kids anyways, but they wanted to learn an emerging technology so that that they could learn something new or do something that they could potentially do from home. So that was a bit surprising. But it was a free program, so they were willing to do it. Expecting people to pay to learn about a technology that they don't understand, and then they don't understand what would they do for work or how would they make money, even if they did invest the time. So it was like they would invest the time because there's still a risk that I'm going to invest the time and I'm not sure what I'm going to, how is me investing this time actually going to get me anywhere? To also, if you were to spend money on it, it's like, oh, hey, study this course. It's going to cost you 15, 20 grand and you're going to have a student loan and all this. But you have no idea what you're going to do for a job afterwards. You don't even know what type of a job you apply for because, you don't understand it. So it was quite difficult, I think, for them to get people to pay for the course. But because it was on the study free list, we had lots of students doing the course.
Women Leading the Way podcast.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. If people don't understand the space yet and they can't see a clear job path, paying 15 or 20 grand feels like a huge risk. So now I'd love to make this real. Can you share a story of a student you supported, someone who took the education and actually turned it into a new direction or a real life opportunity? Any real story you can share with us?
I have definitely supported quite a few of my students, a handful of them. From one of them who studied with me, I actually trained her and I said to her, if you want to, she came up to me in Melbourne and she's like, oh, I want to learn. How do I teach this? I've been a teacher. I love crypto, da, da, da. And I was like, well, work with me. And I actually trained her up and she's now the trainer at the college that I left. I've had many other stories where I've really helped with, some of the students through their whole career and then get a position. And so that's quite rewarding. And the one, probably the most recent one, even like tonight, was the launch of our program that we're doing in the Philippines. And Dee, who is the project lead, who's one of my students from the diploma, and then she joined All Things Blockchain as one of our volunteers to start with. And now she's an intern for Evolver. And she's an educator in her field. And I said to her, what do you want to do? And she's like, oh, I'd love to teach other people the basics. And she's from the Philippines. She lives in Australia, but she's from the Philippines. And so then we, have a program that we've launched there because some of our team are there. She's from there. And so we're doing this kind of bilingual course. So it's kind of delivered in English, but also explained in Tagalog to really kind of help people be able to understand, still learn the terminology and everything in English, but just kind of get a better understanding because somebody's explaining these new, weird, kind of complex terms of where there's no direct translation and trying to kind of explain to people what it means. And she delivered her first lesson today. And one of the cool things was, because it was a webinar and there was a whole classroom. So there was 30 different people on the call, but one of the people was you could see the whole classroom. And there was 30 students in this classroom all tuning in to listen to this lesson. So I thought that was pretty cool,
Wow, that's honestly such a powerful moment. like you're not just teaching one person, you're creating someone who can teach the whole room. And that classroom picture is insane. And it also makes me think when you go deep into blockchain, you end up going deep into everything like, money, the internet, education, how governments work. So I'm curious, has Web3 changed the way you see systems and power? Like when you understand blockchain, do you start looking at our financial system and governments differently?
It's so complex, our government systems, our financial systems, our governance systems. And when you really obviously start to dive deep and learn, financial literacy, understand the history of the internet, understand, history of money, understand all of these things, they're all systems. How we drive on the road, put on your seatbelt, stop at the stoplight. Like this is just a system and this is just a governance model. And this is, just the terms and the conditions of the smart contracts, right? So like, it's no different. But I think definitely when you understand how the systems are broken, and the only thing that is stopping the change is the people, right? Because we've been programmed for so long to think a certain way or do a certain thing, go to school, get a good job, 9 to 5, we've been taught for so many years. And forget about even like the crypto and Web3 side of things. Just think about the education side of things. And how many times have you heard, oh, I wish they taught me about financial literacy in school. Like, I wish they taught me about compound interest in school. I wish, I wish somebody told me what leverage was, back in, and all these things, right? And there's all the theories is because they don't want us to, they want us, they want us to be these 9 to 5 kind of like cash, cash cows, I guess, if you want to say. So from that one side, and then when you think of the others, because it's just about people that have power and control. And a lot of the reasons why, not that we have time to go down this rant, but I'll leave it at here. A lot of the reasons why there's so much pushback from governments and organizations that don't want to lose their power or their control, or they don't want there to be transparency. They don't want to use blockchain technology because they want to keep their power, and that is the polar opposite of what blockchain is. But we still have a very, very, very long way to go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. If the system, is built on control, then transparency feels threatening. So what do we do with that, actually? Like, on a human level, how do you actually move change forward? What's your approach? How do you empower people so they stop feeling like, stuck inside the system?
Well, you just need to empower others, right? So if we use Dee as the example, who's my intern, I said to her, okay, I want to launch this program in the Philippines. I don't speak Tagalog. I'm not from the Philippines. I don't know. I was like, okay, great. And I empowered her and I said, I want you to treat this like it's your program. I'll give you the tools and the resources and the guidance and all of that. But hey, let's see if we can make it successful. If we can make it successful, let's do a pilot program. And so you empower one person and then they go and then they feel empowered and then they're trying to help other people. And so then it just becomes this network effect, so I think that it's just, and the empowerment of blockchain is when you fully, truly understand what self-sovereignty is. And we're not going to go into that, but when you fully understand what that is and what that means for us as a whole, as an ecosystem, I think that it's quite an important message. But for many, many years, I think the message has been lost of the core essence of the purpose of blockchain technology and crypto and Bitcoin and self sovereignty and the empowerment that it can give us through the scams and the hype and the pumps and the dumps and all of this. It's kind of like tarnished, the true power in behind it. However, in saying that, I think that other stuff is starting to fall to the wayside, and people are, starting to see the power of it. And especially now that they see that they can never, I actually said to people today in my class, I'm like, there's only one way to stop Bitcoin. If a country wants to stop it, there is literally only one way. And someone was like, oh, cut the power. Well, technically, yeah, they could cut the power, but you could have backup generators. Like, how long are they going to leave the power off? But it's like, it's the internet, it's the internet is about the only thing that could stop Bitcoin. And what's the world going to do? What are they going to do? Shut down the internet? Pretty much the whole world operates on the internet.
Yeah, I love that idea. Empowerment isn't just about the tech. It's also about people feeling confident enough to show up. So yeah. And now let's talk about women specifically. When a woman walks into a Web3 space for the first time, a meetup, a conference, a room full of strangers, like anything else, what actually helps her feel safe and comfortable? What do you do, like in a practical way, to make that space feels more welcoming?
Yeah, I think for humans in general, but particularly women, when we go into an environment that is uncomfortable or new or unfamiliar, right? Even if it's, say, like it's at a room or a venue and you're going by yourself, always a little bit more, scarier, or you don't know what's going to happen. Rather, if you go with friends, you feel more relaxed or you feel more comfortable, Well, it's kind of like that same thing that when you go to an event and you're the only female there, it definitely feels very, very different than if there's, some other females there. And that's why we always make such an effort at all of our events to always introduce ourselves to the new women, take them over, introduce them to the other ladies. And then so they start to feel more comfortable, because a lot of the times, this is a huge narrative that I hear a lot, and I don't know if it's global or if it's just in Australia. But a lot of the women that are advocates for more women in the space, like me, but they really are fighting for female representation on stages and on panels, particularly, right? And I always just kind of say, it's kind of like, yes, we need to be saying to the male organizers, they need to make an effort to have diversity on there. But more importantly, we need to help empower and educate the women, because sometimes it's that the women aren't putting their hands up. And I've had lots of conversations with a lot of event organizers saying, we try to get women sometimes to speak, but they don't want to. They're too shy. They da-da-da. So sometimes, and the amount of times that I've coached or mentored or whatever word you want to use, a woman to do her like first public speaking gig, and how nervous, and then afterwards they love it and then they want to do it again. But like, so I think it is a new way of helping women become leaders, because you're providing a space for them to feel safe and empowered. And when they feel safe and empowered, then they can then help others feel safe and empowered, which then is, kind of like this thought leader kind of, I guess, network effect.
Women leading the way.
Yeah, I really love that. It's so real. When women feel safe in the room, they don't just stay. They start showing up as leaders, and then, they bring other women and with them. So that's like the real network effect in real life. Okay, before we wrap, let's do a quick fun segment called Traffic Light. Just a little life check-in. The idea is quite simple. It's like driving. So green means start something new, yellow means keep going, and red means pause or do less. I'll ask you 3 quick questions and you have to answer them without thinking. Let's do it. So green light, tell us what's the one thing you want to start doing this year?
What do I want to start doing for this new year? Oh, gosh. I guess the newest habit that I'm trying to do is every morning when I wake up, doing 20 minutes of guided meditation and breath work. That's the new thing that I'm trying to do this year.
Love that. I actually meditate too. And I've been thinking about doing a retreat, this kind of things when you sit in silence, meditate, clear your mind. I feel like it's very cool. 20 minutes in the morning is such a good reset and start in the practice. I absolutely adore this. So let's move to yellow light. What's something you want to keep doing?
Educating people and helping people learn about crypto and blockchain.
That's so you, and that's really working. So moving to the red light. What's one thing you want to do less of this year? Something you're ready to simplify?
Gosh, I don't know, to be honest. Something I want to leave behind. I don't know. I think that question is too deep to answer on the spot.
Yeah, I feel you. So no need to invent anything.
Maybe we'll just say the bear market. We can leave the bear market behind. I'm ready for a green market.
I love that actually. So let's claim like this more green market energy this year. Danielle, thank you so much. This conversation was such a good reminder that leadership doesn't always start with a perfect plan. A lot of the time it starts with just curiosity, courage, and community. So before we go, where is the best place for people to find you and follow your work? Let us know.
Well, the best thing, if you want to reach out to me, Danielle Marie on LinkedIn is probably the best platform to get to me on socials, or go to our Evolve Her website. It is a bit of a unique spelling, but we will also be launching our Learn and Earn. It's Project Laptop, Web3 Business in a Box. That will be all happening towards the end of the year. So anybody that's interested in learning more about how you can get involved and start learning about the Web3 ecosystem and different ways that you can participate and earn tokens and learn how you can potentially generate revenue from, having a Web3 business. Just follow along, join us. We do lots of online webinars. Reach out to us. We're here to help you. Join the Education Hub. It's all free.
Perfect. We'll put all your links in the show notes so everyone can find you easily. Thank you so much. And to everyone listening, if this episode resonates with you, share it with a woman who needs to hear it. For more stories and updates, visit womenlead.co.uk and follow us on our LinkedIn page. So this was Women Leading the Way by Drofa Combs. Thanks for listening and see you in the next episode. And don't forget, women don't just follow the way, they lead it.
Women leading the way. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.